So I took the plunge. I went and bought a MacBook Pro, the 14-inch model, with the M1 Pro chip, 10-core CPU, 16-core GPU, 1 terabyte of storage, and I love it. So prior to this, I had the MacBook Air with the M1 chip, the absolute base model that you can get, the one with the 8 gigabytes of RAM, and I think it was 8-core CPU, GPU. I don't know what the absolute base model of the MacBook Air that is available. I also have a Mac Mini that I use as kind of my main everyday machine. That is also the absolute base model with the 8 gigabytes of RAM. So I needed something with a little bit more oomph. The MacBook Air with the base M1 configuration is absolutely fantastic. It was really good, and it was doing the job for a long time for me, and I didn't have much of a big problem until I started editing in 4K, where it did get slightly more stuttery and laggy. It was doing the job, but just not as efficiently as I wanted to do. It was the same kind of reason I switched to Mac in the first place. I wanted more efficiency. So I thought to myself, well, since I'm going to be doing more demanding work that is going to be bringing me back that revenue that I will spend on this inevitably, then I might as well go and grab this. And I can say that I am not disappointed in the least bit. I've been using this for a little under a week now, and my first impressions of this are that it is amazing. So just to start with, in terms of the design, I really like the design of these MacBook Pros. It does bring back the kind of old school design that the MacBook Pros have. I've never owned a MacBook Pro before this. My first Mac machine was the Mac Mini, and then I bought the MacBook Air. So, you know, I don't really have a personal comparison to make, but I do like the square kind of design that this has. It is a bit thicker than the MacBook Air, noticeably thicker than the MacBook Air, and heavier, but it is one of the Pro model laptops. So that is a given. It's not going to be as nice and slim and sleek as the MacBook Airs are. That being said, I chose the 14-inch model because I did want that slight bit of portability. 16-inch, I had a look at it. It did look nicer to have that bigger screen, but for the price and the size that it comes at, I didn't want to invest that much in it. The 14-inch, it comes at a really nice compromise size. The screen is still bigger than the MacBook Air that I had, so it's still bigger and nicer to edit on than what I was using before. In terms of the price, it is obviously cheaper than getting the 16-inch model. Now, like I said, I do have the more maxed out configuration of the Apple M1 Pro chip in this. In my opinion, if you're going to be going for the M1 Max chip or the M1 Ultra chip, if I was to get the Mac Studio, then you need to be doing a hefty amount of editing. And for me, it just didn't make sense to kind of invest in getting one of those. In terms of performance and what I need, this seems to be doing perfectly. I edited an entire video on this, and I didn't face any lag, any stuttering. It did struggle a little bit with the Fusion titles, but I think that's just more of a Resolve thing than it is the Mac. Overall, it was a lot smoother than editing on the MacBook Air, and even sometimes editing on the Mac Mini. I'm not sure exactly why, but it does have a little bit more power in it, and when I edit on the Mac Mini, I tend to face less problems than I do with the Mac Air. But with using the MacBook Pro, I face none of that whatsoever. The scrubbing through the timeline was absolutely seamless. I kept it at max quality. I didn't tinker with, use any proxy media or any optimized media whatsoever. Straight out of the R6 into the Mac and edited it out. And yes, the H.264 encoding on the R6 with Canlog 3 isn't as demanding as you would with 5K, 6K, 8K footage that you get out of the R5 or the A7 III or any of those other higher end cameras. So in terms of the demand that my camera has on my machine, 4K is the maximum that I can go to, want to go to, need to go to, and this managed to handle that absolutely perfectly. I also rendered out a video that I had already completed. That was a video for the Fine mic that I did and posted previously. I didn't edit that on the machine, but it is quite a hefty long video. It's about 17 minutes long, multiple layers, different camera angles, a couple of text overlays. You know, it's quite a hefty project in terms of as far as YouTube videos go, as far as my YouTube videos go. Now, when I rendered it out on the Mac Mini, it was about 33 minutes, as you can see here. When I rendered it out on the Mac Air, it was a little bit longer than that. It was about 36 minutes that it took to render. I don't know why there was that slight difference. Maybe it's just because of the power consumption that both of them have and that they can put into the program. But they were about similar, above 30 minutes to render out a 17-minute video with multiple layers. With the MacBook Pro, however, I managed to render it out in just under 14 minutes. So it was at 13 minutes and 39 seconds, which is amazing if you look at the difference. It's more than twice as powerful. I mean, yes, this isn't the base model, so it's not really a fair comparison against the MacBook Air. In terms of the configuration of this, is probably twice as powerful as the configuration of the MacBook Air, and it is giving you more than twice the performance boost. So the time taken to render out that project was more than twice as good. So there you have it with the performance in terms of the MacBook Pro. I'm super happy. The 10-core CPU and the 16-core GPU combo with the Apple M1 Pro chip is absolutely fantastic. 16 gigabytes of RAM built into this. So I'm super happy with that. Now, in terms of everything else, the screen, it's got that ProMotion display. So you've got that variable 120 Hz refresh rate. It does have that notch, which is a little bit awkward to have on a laptop. I'm used to the notch on my phone, not so much on the laptop. I am used to now having the notch on the Galaxy Tab S8 Ultra that I use. So really, the notch isn't a massive problem. I just didn't see the advantages of having the notch, apart from the fact that the bezels are a little bit smaller and the fact that it doesn't give you that depth sensor that the iPhones have, which is why the iPhones need the notch. I just didn't see a reason why Apple had to incorporate the notch into this MacBook. It is what it is. It's there. It's hardly noticeable for most of the programs. And by now, because it's been a couple of months since this has been out, a lot of the apps that had a problem with the notch kind of hiding menu items, it has now disappeared. They have optimized those programs to have the menu items kind of appear around the notch. It does take a little bit more space up on the taskbar at the top to kind of have those items on board, and it does get rid of some of your icons on the right, but it is what it is. I'm not really, gonna fuss about that because everything else about this MacBook is absolutely amazing. So far, I've had no issues with it. Multiple apps open, pushing the performance to as far as I can go. I've been using DaVinci at the same time as Photoshop, Resolve, Affinity, all of the stuff that I would generally use for content creation. I've had open and I've been using, and it's not caused me any problems whatsoever. I've not seen any lag in performance, but the main thing I would be using it for is the video editing, and that's been absolutely seamless so far. And the keyboard is this nice new keyboard. They've gotten rid of the touch bar at the top, and the keyboard itself is really, really nice and responsive. I really like this in comparison to what the MacBook Air keyboard was like. I don't know a lot about Mac keyboards. I've seen reviews about people going in depth about the keyboard. It just feels really nice. It does feel a lot nicer to type on this keyboard than it did with the MacBook Air for some reason. I've never been a big fan of the MacBook keyboards. However, this one has been much more comfortable. The trackpad is quite big. It's really nice to use the trackpad keyboard combo. However, I do just tend to use my MX Master mouse. The trackpad isn't a big thing, but if I'm going to be using it on my lap, lounging around whilst I edit, want to be a bit more relaxed, then the trackpad is absolutely fantastic. And of course, guys, one thing I almost forgot to mention is the ports. The ports are back. So I don't know why I'm so excited about this, but I am, because my previous MacBook just didn't have the right number of ports. It had the two Thunderbolt ports on the left hand side. Both of them could be used for charging, but if you were using one for charging, then you only had one other port left and you'd have to add a dongle on, which is a bit of a faff. You'd be limited to just using the one. So this now has a MagSafe charger, so you don't have to worry about your laptop going flying off the table when the charger cable gets snagged on or anything like that. The MagSafe charger will just kind of flop right off. It's really nice and magnetic. I really like that. I really like that they brought that back. It still has two Thunderbolt ports on the left hand side of the laptop, as well as your audio jack, the 3.5mm audio jack. And on the right hand side, they have put in a HDMI cable, guys. This is fantastic because it's so much more handy to have the HDMI cable rather than have to carry a converter or a dongle. And you've also got an additional Thunderbolt port and an SD card reader, so you don't need to carry any of those card readers, dongles, any of that extra stuff with you anymore. Just the laptop itself does the job for you. So overall, the MacBook Pro to me has kind of proved what Apple were advertising. It is definitely a machine made for professionals, because I wouldn't even recommend your everyday individual to grab one of these. The M1 MacBook Airs, yes, maybe, because that's the base model. It comes at £999, brand new from Apple. You can probably get it cheaper from other retailers. If you're in the market for getting a nice MacBook to do your uni work with, something that's going to be powerful enough to kind of handle multiple things, but you don't need it for professional levels of work, then yes, I would recommend getting the MacBook Air. However, if you're a professional who's looking for editing and doing the professional work on the go, they want something portable enough, but that has the power packed into it that they can do all of their work. It's got the quality, the screen quality that you need. It's got all of the features that you would want from something that's Useful for professional work on the go, or even as your main workstation, whatever you want to use it as. This is built for a professional. The amount of power this thing pumps out, it doesn't make sense for your lay individual to kind of grab it. It does make sense for a professional who's going to be using it for that professional work to get it. So overall, I absolutely love this so far. I think it's an absolutely great machine, and I'm looking forward to kind of using it more and more to do all of my professional work with and all my content creation on. That's it, guys. That's what I'm going to say. Highly recommended for content creators. Fantastic MacBook. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hope it was informative for you. Hope it helped you make a choice if you were considering getting one of these machines, the MacBook Pros, whether it be the 14-inch or the 16-inch model, or it helped you make an alternative choice if you think that this just isn't for you. If you enjoyed my video, make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button. Smash those buttons, guys. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to see more of my tech videos, then make sure you hit the links on the screen right now. Until next time, guys, this is Kai24 signing out.